14th, 2021 meeting of the Local Planning Agency will now come to order. The Local Planning Agency is an advisory board of citizens appointed by the City Commission. This board is comprised of volunteers who represent the thoughts and concerns of the community. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to make recommendations to the City Commission regarding each item on the agenda. Tonight we'll be conducting a public hearing, therefore this meeting is obviously open to the public. Anyone in the audience who wishes to give testimony to any of the items on the agenda will need to be sworn in by Joan McHale, the business manager. This swearing-in process will occur after our first agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes from the last LPA meeting. Please be aware that this local planning agency is not a quasi-judicial board and therefore has no final decision-making power. Our procedures, however, are structured in a quasi-judicial manner for the benefit of those who come before it. Tonight's format will be as follows. I will introduce each item on the agenda, after which the city representative will present information about it. Thereafter, the members of the local planning agency will respond to the city representative. Finally, anyone from the public may come forward. Those from the public wishing to give testimony will need to approach the dais, identify yourself, and then utilize the speaker's lectern in order for your comments to be recorded. Upon the conclusion of the public hearing, the local planning agency will consider the evidence before it and will vote on the agenda item. That voice vote is the rendition of the order of the board, and there will be no written decision issued by the board. For the record, Matthew Walensky, one of our members, has an absence tonight and it has been excused. First item on our agenda tonight is the approval of the minutes from the May 19th, 2021 meeting, and that was a special LPA meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? I have notified the city clerk that I noticed 6 that I wanted to have corrected, just replacing the word tonight, since that was a special meeting in May, to afternoon. So Joan McHale has made those corrections as well. They were all on the front page, and it was just, again, it was a special meeting, so therefore typically it would be the night meeting, but it's an afternoon, so we've changed the word tonight and night to afternoon. And those, if anyone else is familiar with that, I have made those corrections. Joan's made those corrections, and it was just so that I didn't have to read word for all of you tonight. So are there any other questions? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the minutes as corrected?
I move that we accept the minutes as corrected. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by the same sign. Thank you. The minutes stand approved as corrected. Joan McHale, our business manager, will now swear in all persons wishing to speak to or give testimony to tonight's agenda item.
Please raise your right hands. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you. That was safe to get up and get sworn in.
That was quick.
That was quick. Thank you, Joan. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Second item on our agenda tonight is application DR21-04. Design review approval for the Isle of Bayshore, a 17-unit townhouse subdivision at 1533 Bayshore Boulevard and 1540 Pasadena Drive. Has anyone had any ex parte communication regarding this application? Hearing none, I'd like to turn this over to Mr. D. Pasqua.
Good evening. Joseph DePasqua, the Assistant Director of Community Development, on behalf of the Community Development Department. So as mentioned, the application you have before you, application DR2104, is the Isles on Bayshore. The property owner is Nicholas Biba. I hope I'm saying that right, Biba. The applicant is Reed Hayden, also an LLC, AR 1540 Pasadena Drive, LLC. The designers of the project are SDG Architecture and Hayden Engineering and Design. And again, the request is for design review approval to construct a 17-unit townhome subdivision on the subject properties. So a little bit about the subject properties. There are 2. If you hope hoping this will work. Okay. So the property, it comprises two actually separate parcels. They're actually identified separately by address and by parcel number. The first is 1533 Bayshore Boulevard. The second is 1540 Pasadena Drive. As you can see, Pasadena Drive actually juts down and dead ends at the northern property line there. So you have two different addresses, but the properties combined are about 1.18 acres, or about 51,401 square feet in area. The current land use of the property is residential medium, RM. So just let me, for anybody who may be watching or anyone in the audience, if you're not oriented with it, the property itself, as you can see, fronts on Bayshore Boulevard to the west, the Pinellas Trail to the east, and of course, if you look to the far left, obviously you have St. Joseph Sound, and then you have some residential neighborhoods to the north, south, east, and west of the property. So the existing land use is residential medium. The existing zoning is tourist facility. The property does sit in multiple flood zones as you work from west to east, AE12, AE11, X shaded, and then X unshaded. And just by way of surrounding area, the existing properties around it, the uses are all residential. There's some single-family, tourist facility, and single-family again, and tourist facility again as you bound around it north, south, east, and west. So a quick project overview. Again, the applicant is requesting design review approval to build the Isles on Bayshore. It does consist of 17 new townhomes. These are fee simple townhomes on the properties, along with the associated access management, recreational areas, landscaping, parking, stormwater management, and attendant utilities. The Isles on Bayshore includes two 6-unit buildings, one 5-unit building for a total of those 17 units. All 3 buildings are 4 stories in height, with rooftop patios or terraces. A little bit about the existing site. Again, you can see from the aerial here that the property as it sits today has 3 buildings on it. One is a 2-story multi-unit building, has 9 living units in it. The other one is a single story that has, I believe, 3 units in it. Oh, excuse me, one has 6 units. I apologize. One has 6 units in it. That's the 2-story. One has 3 units in it. And then there's a storage building on the property as well. Those would all be demolished to make way for the subdivision, should it be approved. And we always ask about the existing tenants on the property. What is the plan? We've been told by the applicant they've been notified of the impending potential development and have found housing elsewhere. And again, the aerial will show you that. From a land use perspective, the property, as I mentioned, is in the residential medium. As you can see, this property and the properties to the south of it are in that RM district. A townhome subdivision is consistent with the land use and the countywide plan rules as far as for residential medium. And a land use map, of course, it was included in your backup and is on the screen for anyone to see the properties as they sit. From a residential standpoint, as you all very well know, your density is derived from residential and commercial. In this case, we're talking about residential, is derived from the land use. In this case, the RM land use allows up to 15 units an acre. The combined properties are 1.18 acres, which would allow a maximum of 18 dwelling units. Again, this proposal is for 17, and that does yield a build-out density of about 14.5 units an acre when the project would be complete. I provided a density calculation so you could see how each parcel would support the units, up to 18 in total. Again, reminding you the request is for 17. Here we have a zoning map, and the property, as I mentioned, is in the tourist facility zoning district. Tourist facility zoning does allow townhouse subdivisions. It's a permitted use by right. You can see the property, again, to the south. One parcel to the west is in the tourist facility zoning. The remaining property bounding it to the north and east and to the southwest are in the R60 zoning district, which is single family. So with regard to the zoning, the property itself, you've got some dimensional standards in the tourist facility for this type of use. We have some maximum permitted and then what is being proposed. I provided a table in your background, but I'd like to hit on the high points, which is that the number of stories permitted is up to 5 stories maximum. The proposal, again, is for 4. Building height of 50 feet. The proposal is 44 feet 5 inches. The front setback is 0 to 25 feet. They're proposing 8, and if you note the footnote, they can request a reduction in that front yard setback based on using the principles of new urbanism. And so I'm going to get into that in a minute because they have made that request, and I'd like to talk about that. But the other 2 setbacks are 10 feet respectively, and they have met those at a minimum. So again, if you look at the footnote, it talks about if you basically employ some principles of new urbanism into the design of your project, you can reduce that setback at some point from 25 as far down as 0 based upon your design. And so when you look at it, so staff looked at the proposal, asked for a justification from the applicant, which we received that as well as the design, and then did an evaluation of those principles of new urbanism. And there's basically 10, and I provided them within the staffing of all the 10 principles of new urbanism, and does in fact the project employ those. And so what I would say is that I'll draw your attention to number 2. There's a connectivity. So when you look at new urbanism, you're typically looking at the connectivity with the surrounding properties. And while this property does have access, in other words, you can get in the property from both Bayshore and Pasadena, there's no public access through it. It's going to be gated entrances. So that is an unusual concept that isn't typically a tenet of new urbanism. Some of the items, as you can see listed, are not necessarily relevant, such as the mixed use and diversity, because the property doesn't support mixed use. The land use zoning doesn't. So you wouldn't typically see a mixed use scenario here. But you do have a mix of uses around the property. The other area that I would draw attention to is the 5th tenet, which is quality architecture and urban design. And this is how you've obviously designed something to function with its surrounding area. And while I think the design itself, from a staff perspective, we do believe there's some elements within the site itself. The building facade facing Bayshore Boulevard really offers no meaningful interaction with the right-of-way. And that's what you're typically looking for with new urbanism. You pull things up to the street to have interaction, to have connectivity, to have that, I guess connectivity and interaction, I guess is probably the best way to say it. And in this instance, you've got a building pulled very close with very little interaction with the right-of-way. More importantly, you've got a fence and sort of a delineator there at the public. So you really don't have any of the interaction that you would want from an urban design in this to support the reduced setback from 25 feet to 8, which is a 17-foot reduced setback. It's pretty significant. So, when you look at all those things combined along that right-of-way, you just don't have those. Staff didn't believe they had those elements and to meet those requirements. Some of the traditional neighborhood structure, I think when you look at the area around the property, and I'm talking about number 6, what you have is you have a site that is very isolated. It's being basically gated and fenced. And so that's an uncommon, even with the multifamily to the south, that's an uncommon situation in the surrounding area. The increased density component that is listed here, obviously there is no allowable increased density, and that is usually something, as you see in the notes, that is about when you have something close to a downtown. This is 3/4 of a mile north of our traditional downtown, so it doesn't have the elements of a downtown that you would typically find with some of our projects we are familiar with living in its downtown, Artisan and some of the other ones. And then from a smart transportation, this is another one where we have a very traditional non-urban, new urbanism design. You basically come in the property through a gated entrance, you sort of in and exit out, very little mention or design elements that would lead you to some of the things that you would be looking for: improved accessibility, transportation choices, reduced traffic, speeds. Those are the type of things that you would want to see, and we're not seeing that in the design. Sustainability, I will say that they have presented a sustainability matrix that was reviewed by our sustainability program coordinator, Natalie Gass, and she's preliminary graded it with the amount of points they've asked for. So that part of it has been met. And then certainly the last one is a quality of life issue. And from a staff perspective, we look at the size and the mass compared to the surroundings. And our question would be, we think the public would be looking, whether I'm a surrounding neighborhood member or a potential buyer or somebody moving in there, that's a question that they're going to have to obviously heavily weigh should this project move forward, because when you look at the project and its surrounding, obviously your quality of life is something that is personal to you. So that's not something necessarily that staff would necessarily weigh in, because that's more of a personal issue. And then the final element, which specifically is called out in that footnote, is when you bring a building forward and you create that urban element, typically your parking goes around the side and the rear. And at least in this instance, the parking is screened because of the way the buildings are laid out. You don't have parking right up against the street like you would with a typical commercial building, where you'd have parking field in front of a building. So that part of it, by the pure design of it, the parking is underneath, and the 2 parking spaces by the community rec area, which is the swimming pool, are also proposed to be screened with some landscaping. So I think that element has been at least satisfied in the preliminary design. So that's from a land use and zoning perspective and your dimensional criteria. So the next area you're going to see is something you probably haven't seen in previous staff reports, but we've received some comments that, similar to what this group told me a year ago, they'd like to see additional analysis and elements in our staffing about how we're applying the code. And so this is an element that has come up at recent meetings and was asked to be part of staffing, which is our comprehensive plan analysis, specifically our compatibility in what's called Objective O. So we've provided that. I provided a link. I hope each of you had a chance to take a look at that. And so staff went through that, and really what we're looking at is the physical compatibility with the proposed project against the existing buildings around it and the potential for what could be developed around it. So it's really both. And so some of the things we'd be looking at are height issues, architectural features of the existing structures, historical aspects of the existing structures, natural features, existing land uses, existing residential density, and economically related uses. And so from a staff evaluation, the primary issues we identified with incompatibility surrounding this project had to do with the height and massing as it relates to the existing land uses around the property. And so what we've done is provided you a little analysis, and I hope you had a chance to, we wanted to put it in an exhibit that would be helpful, we hoped. And so this exhibit, so we looked at not just the existing uses. So the first thing we looked at is, would the existing uses on the site, which would go away if the project moved forward, would those be considered compatible with what's going on around it? And the answer is yes. There's basically a 2-story structure tucked in the back. There's a single-story structure along one property line, and then along the trail, there's the storage structure I mentioned. Those are all older structures except for the storage structure, which was built in the last 20 years or so. And so those would be considered compatible. And then when you start looking at what's going on around the property, you look at the surrounding properties to the north, and everything you see in purple here, or lavender if it's not coming through color right on your screen, is a 1-story building as it sits today. And everything you see in that green, or that sage color, is a 2-story structure. The 3-story structure is a single-family home across the street that I believe is under construction and perhaps is nearing completion. And then the 4-story structure is the one we're talking about here tonight. So as you can see, you've got somewhat of a juxtaposition between what's being proposed and what's going on the ground around it. Taking that sort of a little bit further, you've got, further to the south, you've got that, the tourist facility. That's a multifamily project called Harbor Oaks of Dunedin Condominiums. Those are all 2-story structures as well. And they, again, they're not bounded necessarily on all sides by just residential, but they do have that one parcel, those 2 parcels to the north that are TF. So then The third item that we looked at was the existing land use and, what could essentially happen around the property when you look at compatibility with, so when you look at what you have on the ground, well, first of all, from a land use perspective, you can see you have predominantly RU all around the property, which is our residential urbans most compatible with our R60 district. And then you have the RM, where you have the tourist facility over top of it. But this piece transitions very quickly to obviously R60 to the north, to the east, and to the west. And so that, sort of that dead end of the TF that transitions to something that is a two-story, 27-foot maximum, that's really where you have your issues with what's on the ground, what could be on the ground versus what's being proposed. So having said all that, and again, this is articulated in greater detail in the staffing, three multifamily buildings, 4 stories in height, at very near maximum density compared to what's going on around it would be viewed as incompatible with the existing heights and residential densities, and contrary to the policies of the city, the comprehensive plan, the objectives and the policies therein. So now, and I know, I apologize, I know it's a lengthy report, but I'd like to be able to sort of touch on the other design review criteria briefly, because these are the things that you're used to seeing each month, which talks about common open space. And so if I could, I'll just walk through those. From a common open space, we've got that standard of 100. That is being met. It's being exceeded. From a circulation and mobility, this is from a purely transportation. Clearly, you enter through the site, you exit through the site, either through Pasadena or Bayshore. So this is the site plan. You can see that you have an entrance off of Bayshore. Come through the site, you can either enter, it's two-way, so there's really no issue with circulation and mobility purely from moving cars. Parking, loading, and stacking, each vehicle, each unit is, I believe this one, you can see each one is equipped with a 2-car garage, so they have handled any parking or stacking. The off-street parking requirement, and you're used to seeing this for townhomes, is 1.5 spaces per unit, and they have provided 2 per unit plus the 2 by the pool area for a total of 36, so they've met that requirement. The applicant's landscape architect will be working with the city arborist should the project go forward on any buffering or screening, both what would be required and what would be best practices for that area. Fences and walls, I mentioned earlier, the property will have a fence around the perimeter of it, including along the trail. From an architectural style, the applicant did choose one of the 5 approved. They chose the Anglo-Caribbean, and in your backup, you were provided with both the architectural renderings and the perspective renderings. From a sustainability standpoint, as I mentioned, the applicant did submit the matrix. It was pre-development graded, if you will, by Ms. Gass, and they achieved the 146 points. Minimum 100 was required. From a sign standpoint, they're showing a sign. Obviously, they would need a permit when the time comes. From public art, this project does trigger a public art component. They've elected to pay into the public art fund. From a parkland impact fee, it's been calculated by our Parks and Recreation Department. The worksheet was included in your backup. They would get credit for the existing units and then pay the net difference between that and the new units, between essentially 9 units and 17, with some credits for some on-site recreation. There was no requirement to do a citizen participation plan, but I'm going to assume the applicant will speak to this evening what they did. The understanding was they were going to reach out to the surrounding areas and get feedback, and of course, we would wait to hear that this evening. From a traffic impact analysis, when you're going from 9 to essentially 17 units, multifamily to multifamily, the net increase as delineated here is de minimis. It's going to be clearly less than the 51 peak hours that would trigger anything more than just paying an impact fee. The level of service, the ability for the city to provide sewer, water, solid waste, those things, that is not an issue. The city has the ability to serve the site. Some previous committee actions. This application was reviewed by DRC, and all of the comments from a technical standpoint have been addressed. to the satisfaction of the reviewers. The Architectural Review Committee did review this proposal in February 2nd of this year. They did recommend unanimously approval of the architectural design of the site, and I've provided the minutes to that meeting as well in your backup. I always mention platting because at some point when you do fee simple, you replat the property. This property would, should it go forward, would also require replatting, and that would come forward in the form of a resolution to our commission. Fiscal impact, we did just a basic analysis. If each unit were to be taxed at roughly $500,000, the impact of the city using our current millage rate would be about $35,200 annually. So that's the basic criteria you see on the design review side. So with that, staff's determination is that that staff finds that the application, DR 2104, for design review, it's inconsistent with the applicable review criteria for physical compatibility with the surrounding environment found in our policy 01 of the objective O of the comprehensive plan. And in addition, that reduced setback is also a concern, that the design currently, as it sits, does not warrant the reduced setback in staff's opinion. With that, I will end. I obviously will be available to answer any questions. Our department director, Mr. Kinney, is also available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. DePasqua. Other questions of the board? Mr. Massero?
I have.
Joey, I'm impressed that staff used the objective O, and this is an item that you've mentioned earlier that we've tried to talk about in the past. I think this is. I like to see this, and I was pleased to see it within the staffing review, okay, at this time for this project. I think it makes a pretty good impact, so thank you very much for covering that.
If I could, and I just want to be clear, if I wasn't before, we've always used Objective O.
But we've never seen it in
Correct, and that's the distinction. As part of any staff level review, our comprehensive plan is a guiding document, and it needs to be considered. Objective O and compatibility, along with our other comprehensive plan elements, are always part of the review, which is why there's almost always a statement in the staffing that the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. In this instance, you're absolutely right, Mr. Massaro. We've been asked to just basically extract it out and do an analysis on that particular part of it, and that's the difference this time.
Will this be a continuous thing on every application that we will make a topic, a heading, as to whether or not we meet?
I would expect that to be the case, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Gordon?
I've got just a couple of things that I noticed in the staff report, and I guess it was, some of it was in the DRC review. One is engineering had requested a 15-foot easement, so you're saying that that's been resolved, that 15-foot easement around the property?
My understanding is yes.
And I also noticed there's no trash area. That was mentioned, and I haven't. We don't see anything on our side.
I could verify certainly, but as I recall, these units would be. The applicant can speak to this as well. I believe this would be individual. Would not be centralized solid waste. It would be individual cans.
So the garbage truck goes through the site and picks up
That's
individual
my understanding.
garbage cans.
That's the plan, is to use
Same thing with
the right
recycle.
arm, pull the can, and
Same thing with recycle. Okay.
I believe so, yes.
And one last thing, and I guess traffic engineering didn't have any problem with that back out area on that southeast corner unit where it starts out at 20 feet wide and gets less.
Yeah, again, I don't think there was any issues from because it's internal. It's not a public.
Okay.
I mean, certainly I see where you're pointing out. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I just saw some other comments in the staff report that I just wanted to clarify with you to make sure that we were clear on those items.
Yes, and so the other part of it, and that we wouldn't, that should the project go through and become approved, then there's the infrastructure review. And if those things need to be addressed at that point, these being sort of, I'll call them concept plans, they could very well need to be tweaked if something changes and somebody needs something different, if you will.
Okay. And there seems to me like there's been other projects where fences were proposed to be placed directly on the right-of-way, that there was some, and I don't recall, requirement for the landscaping to be on the road side of the fence. Is that not so in this case?
I don't know specifically that that's the case. The way our code deals with landscaping is buffering. So if there's a buffer
There's no
requirement,
buffer requirement.
then clearly the buffer needs to be visible, not the fence.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause I know there's been a couple other people brought it up, and they had to do
I think
buffering on the outside of the fence.
Yeah, as I recall, when our arborist looks at things and there's a buffering requirement, which we have some requirements on how that buffering, what it needs to include as far as landscaping, then you would want that to be what is visible to the adjoining property.
Correct. Okay. That's all I had.
That's great, thank you. Any other questions of the board? Hearing no other questions from the board, at this time, I'd like to open this up to the public. If there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this, as long as you have been sworn in, you are welcome to come
No
forward.
applicant first? About the applicant first.
Oh, the
Oh, the
applicant,
applicant.
I'm sorry. The most important person here. Please forgive me. It's my cold. I think Mr. Smith and I have got the same germs or something.
Well, quit sitting next to one another.
Yeah.
Not a problem. My name is Katie Cole. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Hill, Ward, Henderson in Clearwater. It's very nice to see you all back in person, especially after a respite here. I do represent the developer of this project, and while they are going to speak to the details of the project, and I would respectfully request, we're probably going to be a bit more than 10 minutes because we have a lot of ground to cover. One of the reasons is, to Mr. Mazzaro's point, it's the first staff report we've seen with an analysis of Objective O, and honestly, receiving it on Friday night, we had a lot of work to do between then and now because, as you all know, to your own frustration and to the frustration of many developers over the course of the past several years here in Dunedin, Objective O has been used and spoken about without a lot of very much specificity. While there are some criteria, there's not specific criteria. Obviously, the staff report references Objective O1 because Objective O2 specifically states that Objective O is supposed to be incorporated into the Land Development Code with dimensional criteria and specifics. But the city has never done that and hasn't chosen to do that, so the development community is left with a somewhat ambiguous description of how they should design these projects and meet them. Obviously, my client felt like they had done that prior to receiving the very specific requests and statements that were included. And so we do have comments because we disagree. The developer feels like this is a project that is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood with respect to height and mass. And not only that, it's compatible with a significant number of projects that have been recently approved over the past couple of years in Dunedin with very similar neighborhood situations. And so we look forward to sharing that with you. So with that introduction, I'd like to introduce Alex Contos and Reed Hayden, who are the developers. Mr. Hayden is a professional engineer as well and has worked on this project. So thank you.
Hello, I'm Alex Contos. I'm one of the developers. The main reason that I'm up here right now, because Reed's going to speak to you more specifically about the project and the details of it. The reason I wanted to come up was just because I think there is sometimes a notion that developers are these big bad guys that are coming in and they're going to, try to squeeze the juice out of Dunedin, if you will. And I just wanted to let you know that, Reed is a local guy. He's lived here his entire life. He actually wants to live in Dunedin. He's planning to take one of these units. I told him he didn't have to develop an entire 17-unit project to live here. There's other products, but that's what he's chosen to do. I actually live in this neighborhood. I live on Pasadena. I live in one of the first houses that was built in Dunedin Isles. So I do see the merit in, preserving what Dunedin is and how beautiful it is, but I think it's important to kind of distinguish the difference between preserving and kind of preventing progress. So what I did want to do is I wanted to show what is existing on the property so that we can kind of wrap our head around what we see when we go there. I walk my dogs down there, my newborn child down there every day, and I see this vision of what I believe this property could be. So if we could kind of just zoom in on that, is that the best we're going to be able to see it? That's the best we're going to be able to see it?
Yeah, I think it is.
I can zoom in.
Yeah, okay, all right. So currently there is a, nearly a 20-foot metal building with quite a bit of debris and just storage on site. There's a couple of buildings on here that have not been very well maintained over the years. If you look right here, this is the Bayshore frontage. It's really not maintained at all. It's constantly just kind of being overgrown. It's got falling down signs on it, no trespassing, kind of stay away, keep out kind of look to it. This is the Pasadena frontage here. Similar situation, keep out, no U-turns. All of the turnaround is all broken and busted. There's, kind of falling down mailboxes. Again, here you can see the giant metal building that is sitting on a residential piece of property. So, we're not coming in here and trying to just take what's already beautiful in Dunedin and make it something else for ourselves. We're trying to take something that we personally, we see it and we see that there's so much more potential here for this property to be something that Dunedin can be proud of. So it's not to disparage what's currently there or say that, it's not meeting its max potential, but we think it could be improved upon. There's quite a bit of stuff here, and I know it's hard to see on there, but just unkempt, old kind of junkyard looking items, and I can, hopefully maybe pass it around or something so you can see a little better what the current condition of this property is. And that kind of leads me into what my vision and what Reed's vision is when we go to this property. We think it could be beautiful. We think it could have, this Anglo-Caribbean, just beautiful architecture that we've spent a lot of time designing. We appreciate Objective O, and we appreciate that you're trying to, maintain this feeling of Dunedin and compatibility, but we also did our very best to make sure that it is going to be beautiful. And there are other projects in the area that we looked at and we said, okay, those were compatible based on Objective O. Let's take that as a benchmark and let's do the same thing. And that's what we've done. So like I said, he's gonna go into a little more detail than I did on exactly what it is that we designed. I just wanted to kind of paint an overall picture of the fact that this is a passion project for us. This is something we care about. We do care about Dunedin. I live in the neighborhood. Reed wants to live here. It's simply something that we really hope that it can be looked at with a different lens than simply, developers coming in to try to build a monstrosity and make as much money as they can. That's simply not the case here. It's truly that we believe we can put something on this property that is going to be something the city of Dunedin can point at and say, look how beautiful that is, look what we have. And from there, I'll turn it over to Reed, and he'll give you a little more.
Alex,
Okay.
if you don't mind, could you go back maybe to the second page?
Sure. And this is of the current condition?
Yes. Yeah, that one specifically. Right where your right hand is that about where the entrance, if this new project were to go through, would it be roughly the same point of entry into that property?
This is where the Pasadena part of
I
the
understand.
property, yes.
And that would be the same with the new
Yes, that's where it would still be laid out. The street goes directly into it.
And those mailboxes belong to the people that are currently residing in those multifamily homes in there?
Yes, they do.
And is that metal building, that's the first time that I've seen that, it wasn't in our staffing report. Is that currently occupied? Obviously, that looks like a pretty modern, it was introduced to us as, I believe, as a shed. That's a heck of a lot more than a shed.
It is being used currently as a workshop of sorts. There are boats, cars, trailers. If I had to call it what I see it, it looks like a storage facility where you see just kind of old, stuff sitting there that we know the owner. He's a nice enough guy. He likes to work on cars. He likes to work on his trinkets, and this is where he does it.
Okay. I saw the owner, Nicholas, the applicant, Reed. If you don't mind me asking.
I don't know why I wasn't on there.
What is you, what are you?
I'm Alex Contos. I'm Reed's partner. on
Partner,
the
okay.
deal. Yeah.
Okay. Good, that's all I had, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thank you. It's great to see y'all. I'm Reed Hayden, 105 Bayside Drive, Clearwater, Florida. I wish this was, I was able to zoom in on this a little bit more. It's not going to make the impact that we were hoping it would. But wanted to address the staff report and some of the stuff that Joey so eloquently pointed out. I think that staff's done a very good job assessing the property. We agree with most of it. And here I want to talk about, rather than boring you with all the stuff that we are in agreement with, I'm going to delve into the stuff that that we are not in agreement with, and that would pertain to the new urbanism look for the reduction of that front setback.
Excuse me
And
just
then-
for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we get that magnified better? Is
we've
Jason in
done it
there? I know
before.
that we've
No.
seen that things magnetized better before, or zoomed in. Can we get a zoom on the screen, please? No, not tonight.
Well, I will progressively hold it up in the air.
There you go. There you go.
So with each one, to make the statement, I'll stand up there. I'm not going to get on this table here. But staff pointed out that we do meet the allowable density. We're actually proposing 1 unit less than what's allowable there. And that we do meet the dimensional criteria within the zoning district tourist facility. With the exception, he's saying, of the new urbanism in order to reduce the setback from 25 feet, that's the front setback along Bayshore from 25, down to what we have is 8.5 feet. So I'm going to address the new urbanism aspect first, and because I think we do meet it, the ones that he brought up that he said we did not meet were the connectivity. And I would disagree there, because our site itself, because we are going to be connected to Pasadena and Bayshore, the residents here will have the ability to choose which ingress-egress point works best for them and where they're going and during the time of day and year based on traffic. So I think that's a good way of promoting the connectivity, and they also will have the ability themselves to connect to the trail directly and to either Pasadena or Bayshore's sidewalks. We gated the community actually because there was a concern from some of the neighbors that our project would become a shortcut for people trying to get to the neighborhood there, and that they were worried that there would be traffic other than ours, and also people using their neighborhood to get to Bayshore. So, but we're not tied to the gate ultimately, but we're trying to accommodate everyone. As far as quality architecture and urban design, I think that our elevation along Bayshore is actually kind of unique, and we did pay a lot of attention to that because that's our showpiece. That is we want people to see that and turn and say, it doesn't look stale. It's something that is a place where I'd like to live. So we did try to incorporate that into, beauty into the design, and also make it something that was well connected. And I think something that's not properly conveyed on the site plan is that we don't have an opaque 6-foot fence on the front there. It's going to be a decorative fence that everyone will be able to see through. And as you're walking along Bayshore there, all pedestrians will be well connected, and we have pedestrian accesses from our community to Bayshore. Also, as far as quality of life is concerned, I wanted to point out that, the market, I guess, will determine if this is something that meets their quality of life. And so far, we've had a great response from the market. We've had 8 units actually put out for sale, and we have 8 reservations at this time. So however they're assessing it, we've had a positive response there. So there is a letter in the package from SDG that addresses new urbanism. So if you haven't already, I'd appreciate it if you familiarized yourself. Beyond that, I'm going to go to the compatibility issue. And, we really did take compatibility into consideration. We took it into consideration in the fact that we're surrounded by 1-, 2-, and 3-story residences around us. We're surrounded by single-family homes. Actually, we're surrounded by single-family on the north, east, and west side, but on the south is actually a short-term rental. There are 6 VRBO units to the south. So, again, residential use still, but there's single-family predominantly around us, and we ourselves are single-family as well. We also intentionally, on our site plan, shifted the buildings to the south, as you can see here. So these buildings right here, we have shifted to the south intentionally to put us along the short-term rentals to the south and get us away from the single-family homes up here. Also wanted to kind of give you an idea what that depth is, just so you understand. It's pretty significant. This is so I'm going to try to get y'all to see this. So basically, we have 75 feet between the face of our unit and the edge of the home that's over here and the homes that are here. We also are going to have significant landscaping over here, and our product is 68 feet from our property line there. That distance is wider than the width of a lot of those lots that are along there. So essentially, there's almost an additional lot sitting right there between us. And we're going to have this area here with the pool. We have a decorative wall, we have decorative fencing, and considerable landscaping. As far as the density is concerned, everything in this zoning category, I believe, is only allowed to have 1 unit per lot, essentially. And that's in the R60 category here. In the tourist facility, we're allowed to have a higher density. The site to the south of us, their density, that's where the short-term rental is actually 14.44 units per acre. We're going to be 14.41 units per acre. So, based on those things, we feel we are compatible with this single-family neighborhood that we have here. Now, the Policy 01 in general is a difficult policy to navigate as an applicant. It does not have any defined geometric criteria by which we can design to. It appears to be more of an art than a science for the applicant. So the only way for us to truly determine what compatibility is, prior to having an assessment by staff, is to go out and look at what's been done, that we have no option at that point. So what we chose to do is look at some of the projects that have been approved in the area recently. We are here. Mira Vista, Phase 1 is here, and the Oak Bend townhomes are here. I've just pointed out on this other areas where there are 3- and 4-story product. It's a little bit scattered throughout the entire area. Also, I want to point out that, our product Joey had an exhibit that showed our site as being 4 stories. And our site, we call our product 3 stories with a rooftop terrace. Mira Vista is 3 stories with a rooftop terrace. At least that's how it was referred to in their in their application and in all the staff reports and the minutes from the LPA that we reviewed. And I just want you guys to see our product relative to theirs. So, we're actually smaller. They're 3 feet taller, our units are smaller. So I wanted to give you guys an idea of scale of our product versus Mira Vista. So when we looked at the Mira Vista product, we looked at what's around it. We've generated an exhibit here similar to the one that, and I know it's going to be difficult to see, so I'm just going to tell you what these colors are. So we are here, the aisles. Here's Mira Vista. This red color, pinkish color, represents 3-story product. You have 3-story here, 3-story here. This yellow is 4-story. That happens to be where Marker 8 is, Beso del Sol Resort. The purple color is all the 1-story that's in the area. And the green color is all the 2-story that's in the area. The 2 of the new units that are being built on that site to the south of us, the VRBO site are actually 2-story. So what I'm trying to display in this is that as far as a compatibility of surrounding area, you have a mix of product, and where our product is very similar to where Mira Vista's is and the types of product that are around it. So again, when we look at this and we're trying to figure out what does compatibility mean, we are looking at our adjacent area, and by this, by what we've encountered, it was compatible. Here's a picture of Mira Vista when it was first built next to the 1-story that was there. Here's the 2-story condos that are over there. We are actually going to be further away from the stuff to the north of us, and again, to the south of us, we have short-term rentals. So then we want to look at Oak Bend. Oak Bend is a 3-story townhome, a direct 3-story townhome. So as you can see, this is the product here. It's nearly 37 feet tall, so not quite as tall as us.
This is Oak Bend on Milwaukee and Main Street?
That's correct. So then we have Oak Bend right here. That's where that 3-story product is. Now there is some existing 3-story right here, but all around it here in this purple, that's all 1-story. That is all existing. You have a mobile home park here. This is all existing single-family homes, 1-story. You do have some 2-story multifamily over here, and there is a 2-story little 2-unit building right here. Some commercial out on Main Street, but all that purple is 1-story right up against the Oak Bend's 3-story. And then just want to show you kind of, this is from the south side of Oak Bend. I'm now looking over that, this is from the east side. I'm now looking over this house. This is the unit that's being built. That's the furthest unit away from it, and that's the 2nd floor that's being constructed. There is an additional floor on that. Again, this is the south side looking at it, and you can see this is the 2nd floor. There's another floor there. So I think the real nature of the compatibility here is the use. It's the fact that it's all single-family residential at the end of the day. These are all fee simple owned products, and these are people that care about their neighborhood. And I don't feel that this product would be making any of the neighbors suffer. I'm anxious to hear if their thoughts tonight. And we did make an attempt we went door to door to talk to the neighbors in the community, and we received their comments. Most of the comments we're just not excited about construction. I fully understand that. Nobody likes the noise. And also concern about this being a through street. We didn't really hear anything about the size of the product, the scale, and definitely nothing posed on the architectural front. So I think we are compatible, and I hope y'all see it that way too.
Hold on, Reed.
Yes.
Reed, right?
Yes, sir.
Got a couple questions for you. If this were to happen, what would you use for a construction entrance? Drive past these people's house or tie up traffic on Bayshore?
I'll tell you what, we would probably use Bayshore, we'd have to use Bayshore probably for the larger vehicles, I think would be better. Ultimately, of course, Pasadena, we would use some, but that would be for workers and people like that. We'd have to stage that properly, and we are happy to work with the city and the community to abate their concerns there as much as possible.
Of course, you're looking to build a pretty tall structure. What are the exterior walls constructed out of, and what would the trusses be constructed out of?
So the exterior structure would be all concrete. We don't know if that would be tilt wall versus CMU, probably CMU, but it would all be reinforced concrete. And of course, it would have to be built very durable, all poured cells. We're in a wind loading area where we'd have to design it to the worst storm possible. Right. All the units are actually built up out of the floodplain themselves, so none of the even bottom floor garage finished floor would be below the floodplain. Again, and then the trusses themselves would be wood, or probably a composite wood, which is actually stronger. It's a mechanical product at this point, so it's not just straight timber.
And designed to hold the load of people potentially.
Without a doubt.
Again, for respect to the neighbors back there, from the day one till the day it was done, how long was a project like this last?
We're anticipating 18 months.
18 months.
Yep. We want to be in and out as quickly as possible, of course.
We're now in the middle of July, so we're firing up into the heart of hurricane season.
Yes,
Do you have some kind of contingent plans if we were in the bullseye of an upcoming storm? Are there construction protocol, how you would secure this location?
Well, I
Again,
think
for us and everybody else?
Actually, definitely from a material perspective, we would have to make sure that's secure at all times. And that would have to be done via containers, temporary fencing, things that would keep it strapped down. Things like concrete blocks, stuff like the things that can withstand those loads, that not so much, but all of the timber and any of the more the architectural features, yes, we would have to take measures there, absolutely.
I just want to clarify one last thing. I think you answered it up front. So the public up the trail cannot cut through this property to go to Bayshore. You will have that blocked off?
From the Pinellas Trail or from Pasadena to?
I guess originally when I looked at it, because I'm familiar with that area,
Yeah.
I run the trail up there.
Okay.
And so there would be no public access from the trail into the complex?
No.
Okay.
I mean, what we for our community, yes,
for the
but not
gated
for the
then.
public.
Okay,
Correct.
good.
Reed.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
Reed, you started your presentation discussing the issue that staff has with your request to reduce the front yard setback from 25 feet to 8.
Yes.
Did you, I maybe missed something, are you still in objection to what staff has said, or is that something that you'd be willing to agree with staff that we need to have that kind of a setback that's required?
We are definitely ready to work with staff on measures that we can take in order to make it feel more connected, to meet the new urbanism style. If that means removing all fencing from the front, we're prepared to do so. If that means, a better design of that fence, more landscaping, we're prepared to do so, absolutely. We have a bit of a conundrum with the connectivity. We have local community not wanting that as a pass-through, so that was one part of the purpose of the gates. And of course, the residents themselves want security as well. But I think on most of the measures when it comes to new urbanism, we are prepared to make the concessions that are necessary to get some reduction there.
Well, okay, so my question really was, are you willing to back off of your 8-foot setback
We would be willing to back off our 8-foot sum. We, of course.
and satisfy the staff's requirement for the maximum setback as specified?
Well, we would hope to work to meet the new urbanism style to get some reduction there.
I heard you say that,
yeah.
yes.
But we're ready to work with them on that. As far as it having to be the 8.5, we can make concessions there. Of course, we want to reduce it from the 25, but we'll.
So you definitely
We are-
say no to the 25?
We're seeking a reduction there, and I think we can come up with a design that's actually very favorable to the community. And again, tell us what you want to see, and we're prepared.
Well, I think we've learned within the city that setbacks are very important, even though, we've done quite a few projects where we've eliminated the kind of setbacks, or we reduced them considerably depending on, the areas that they're in, but we've also found that the setbacks have a major impact. And Bayshore Boulevard is a major road, and it has a major impact. So I think you answered my question. Thank you.
I'd like to go on a little bit on that. As part of the new urbanism design criteria or thoughts is that you're supposed to fit more into the community. And I don't see anywhere along Bayshore where you've got a fence right up to the property line.
Okay.
And I feel that is something that you need to reconsider.
Okay.
And I agree that the landscape is important along that side, because if you look at that, a lot of the houses along there have landscaping in front. They also have parking and driveways and things like that. And the other projects you talked about have landscape buffers actually in front of their buildings, even though they're not required. When you ask for additional easements or not easement, but a reduction of things, the code says that you have to provide a reason why, something that you give back to the community that's going to allow you to do this. And I don't see that here. Those types of things are more landscaping, or there are also setbacks or steps backs in the building as the building goes up to the second or third floor. I don't see that here. I see just the face of the building. It's got some elements on it that are nice and well done, but there's no offsets. There's a very minor offset in the building. So there's a lot of things that you can do to create to tie into that new urbanism that will give you more enhancement in the design. And by doing that, you might provide more landscaping, and for providing them more landscaping, you might be able to utilize a reduction in that setback. What you've asked for is you ask for everything, is you want everything that you can get,
Right.
and the reduction in setback. So I don't think it works really that way.
Okay.
And I think that what we're trying to do is to do some trade-offs and make sure that there's some return on that investment from the city into your project.
As you were talking there, I was thinking about it, and we have an opportunity on that front unit to do something a little more unique than the other units there. I think we can set it back considerably and do something on the front side of that, on the Bayshore side of the project, where pedestrians can maybe actually come in a little bit and interact. I don't know if that's in the form of some kind of widened sidewalk, some kind of feature there, an architectural feature. I agree with you, and we can do that, and we want to work with staff to do that. What we're hoping is that, and I didn't want to draw this hard line, say no, absolutely we have to have this, but what I'm hoping is that we can work with staff to figure something out where we are trading off something that's worth staff giving us that reduction. And what that reduction is, don't know what it is. Hopefully there is a reduction there that would be helpful and advantageous to us. And we are prepared to work with them to come up with something that you could get excited about.
Okay. I think that you can do that, and it's something you're going to have to go back to staff and work on that, because I would certainly hate to see this approved and then next door gets approved, next door all the way down, and pretty soon along Bayshore we have a wall. And we don't want that.
Okay.
I don't believe we want that, excuse me. Personally, I don't want that. But I don't think that's for the betterment of the city, and that certainly doesn't meet the neighborhood requirements. I had one other question, and that was on that easement. And it just bothers me a little bit that there was a statement from the engineering department that there's a 15-foot easement around the property, and I just want to know how you agreed to handle that.
So that easement is it's in the code directly. And it's just every project, doesn't matter whether that project is 50 acres or 1 acre. It just says we want a 15-foot utility easement around the project, and then it's so they can properly, it's a lot for drainage. That's one of their big concerns. They're always concerned about drainage affecting people off-site, and I completely respect that. Drainage is my forte in engineering. But what you find with these smaller sites where you have a drainage design, and you have also an area where there are no sewer utilities running. There's no sewer and water in that area. And if you properly grade the site, properly build the site, then you don't have those drainage issues and you've got enough room there to deal with it. Dunedin has made those concessions. We're not reinventing the wheel there. So that's something that's been done. I've done it myself personally on other projects within Dunedin. So it's about, working with the engineering staff and making sure that they are appeased and that we're doing our job with the design.
Yeah, I noticed that there's a utility easement, I guess, on the property directly north of you, and there's a water line or something that runs down through that.
There's a water line down Pasadena, so that's another thing. Right now Pasadena's a dead-end water line.
Yeah,
We're going to loop the system.
good.
We'll add a fire hydrant there at the end
Okay.
as well.
Yeah, that's what staff asked for.
We have, right now, we already have a manhole on site that we can tie to. There will be no, on the south side of us, there will be no utilities running whatsoever.
Okay,
So that's one of the reasons why they make those concessions.
okay. And one last thing is, where are you putting the trash? Oh, are they going to be just storing it? Explain to me how you're going to handle it.
Got it up here. If you see on the south side of the pool there, there's that long strip there. So people are going to have containers, and that is going to be the designated area to put your container. And there'll be a homeowners association that says, okay, this is where you get to put your container. This is the day you get to put your container there. Otherwise, you got to keep your container in your garage. So I just want to make sure you see that. Okay, so
That's good.
basically, and why is it right there? Well, currently the waste management truck comes down Pasadena for the residents there, and they'll be able to pull right through and use their arm to get the trash there.
So they won't just haphazardly be placed out there? Okay.
And also with the gating, also we're planning on keeping it. Those gates are going to be open during the day. They're not. It's there for ease of our residents as well.
Are they going to be card gates, or
Pardon?
are they going to be button gates? Yeah. Okay.
So it's it's to not allow for that through access and secure it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of Mr. Hayden? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open this to the public. If there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak, you'll need to come forward to the dais. You'll need to identify yourself. Have you been sworn in?
Yes, I did earlier.
Great, thank you.
Hi, my name is Melanie Ziner. I live at 1554 Pasadena.
Can you say your last name again, please?
Ziner, Z-E-I-N-E-R.
Thank you.
My husband and I recently retired here about a year and a half ago, right before COVID hit. And we came here and we've made a ton of improvements on our home. We agree that where Pasadena stops and that property starts, it's a bit of an eyesore. That shed there or big storage facility, yes, it is an eyesore. Keep in mind that, I don't know when they took the pictures of where the people were residing, but those poor people have been told to leave. I'm sure they weren't taking very good care of it after they were told to leave. Some of them are maybe still there, I think. So I don't know, we haven't been there that long to see that. Consider yourself, with us only having one other house in between us and a 4-story facility that's going to be looking down on our home. Pasadena is a quiet street. It has brick pavers that we're worried about what will happen to those brick pavers. The brick pavers stop where that entrance that goes into where the new place is going to be, will be. We're concerned about the entrance there. We had thought originally when people had been talking in the neighborhood that that was going to be used just for fire and rescue and things of that nature, that it wasn't going to be a general way that people were going to go through. Because we already have an issue now where people come down and go, oh God, I have to turn around. And they try to turn around without going into the little loop because they have a private property sign that says no U-turn allowed there. So those of us where that fence would be, and people come down there and then go, oh my goodness, I have to turn around. What are they gonna do? They're gonna, I had my mailbox hit the other day. They're going to hit, or they're gonna go into our driveways, or they're going to do that. I've seen the pictures, I've seen the drawings. It looks like it's beautiful. And it probably will bring a great deal of value and be better than what is there. But when does it stop? Everything going this way is, yes, condos and buildings and stuff. When do you keep going and getting into the neighborhoods? When does that stop? I hear words that I'm not familiar with, all this urbanism and all this different stuff. But we live in a house we bought on that street because it's nice, it's quaint. It's not gonna have somebody looking at us in our pool, in our backyard every day. I work from home every day. I don't want noise for 18 months. They compared to Mira Vista. Mira Vista just goes out onto Bayshore. It doesn't go into a neighborhood where homes are. So it's only, going there. It is not as gigantic and oppressive as this looks like it's going to be. So I'm concerned living that close, what that's going to do to my quality of life, and when does it start? So then they're gonna offer someone else a lot of money for their property and build another big one because the one next to them is just as high. 4 stories just seems too much to me, where we're at. We're concerned about what's gonna happen to the road, the construction, and that people are going to be in front of our home. I work from home. The noise would definitely be a problem for me working from home if there is construction right there, or trucks going in and out, and cars and things going in and out. And then when you think about it, I know they talked about how many would go in, but you're talking about 17 units, 2 cars, that's 30 some odd, if I'm doing my math right. 34. And visitors and potential that would be going up and down our street, which now very few cars go up and down our street because you have San Salvador, which is a road, and then you just have that little piece of Pasadena where we are that has the little end. So there's very few cars coming down there. So no one has come to speak to us at all. I know you guys said that you met with neighbors. I've been there every day for 2 years since, or every day from the pandemic, and no one's come to talk to me or my husband about how we feel about it. I don't know who they talked to on that. But just think about what it would feel like if you lived there and suddenly there's a huge building right next to your house and looking down on you when you are used to privacy. So we're concerned. I see a couple of the neighbors that live right near us, and we've all expressed the same concerns, the construction. We also, I don't know if you guys are aware, but on Pasadena, from where that fence is going to be to San Salvador, there is no drainage. There's no storm thing. So I don't know what would happen with that or what's gonna happen, but they're I noticed that because I got getting concerned in the neighborhood when they're repaving right now. And I'm like, oh, please, I hope they're not gonna go repave in our area and get rid of the brick pavers that are there, because they're nice. And then I was walking, I was like, wow, there's not a drainage at all between San Salvador and where that gate is going to be. So I don't know what having that there would do. I'm not an architect, I'm not an engineer. I don't know what it would do with the easements and the water and all of that there. We would feel better if it was more like Mira Vista and it just had the entrance from Bayshore. Then it wouldn't feel as much as that it's causing an issue for our the residents that live right directly there. The neighbor that lives right next to it, he's not here, I don't see him. That's in between us and there, but I am sure he feels the same way, because the community pool would be right next to his house. Where that wall is, he lives right there.
Mrs. Ziner, thank you very much, and I'm sure that those that are creating all this will keep your thoughts in mind. We appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you. And like I said, I think it's beautiful what they're trying to put there, and it probably would bring value to the area. It's just, it would encroach on our way of life in our neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak? Please come forward.
Maybe they need to be a little bit briefer.
Could I just have a show of hands of the number of people that would like to speak so that we can judge our time accordingly? 5 more? Okay, great. Thank you. Hi.
My name's Ricky Johnson. I own 1545 and 1551, which are right next to each other, and they do butt up to the property that's getting developed. And Melanie covered most of everything that I think I wanted to talk about, except for the stormwater. And that is a real problem, and there's a real concern about that. And just the other thing is the construction equipment coming up and down that street on that brick road is going to tear that brick road apart, and we're going to wind up losing it. And it's one of the beauty things out there. Just, you know, it's a nice road, and we don't want to lose that. And stormwater, I've been paying for stormwater for 26 years now. I have none. Mine drains down on Reed's property. That's where that goes. And that's just about it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Thank you very much for coming forward. Is there anyone else? Please come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Heather Palermiti. I reside at 1552 Douglas Avenue.
Can you say your last name again, please?
Palermiti, it's Palermiti. And I would like to say that they've done an absolutely wonderful job on the presentation and their idea of the buildings that they want to build. I just feel like the location is wrong. This is something that definitely would fit in downtown in Dunedin in an urban atmosphere, but we live in the suburbs. This is the suburbs we're talking about. Single-family homes, families. I'm raising my daughter there. I want it to be a safe environment, and we like to utilize the trail a lot, and it would be nice to keep everything status quo. And I just appreciate your listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Palermiti. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this application? Please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Dickman. I live at 1532 Douglas. I will have 4 or 5 looking onto my yard. So I realize that we wanted to live there, and I understand it. There's no downside for him. It's beautiful. But 4 stories is a lot. It's overwhelming. And so I'm in my backyard, and I have 3 to 4 homes that are looking at it, down at it. Now, I can see the storage shed. Well, I can't see the storage shed. because the county, the greenery goes all the way up. And so I'm concerned about the backyard fencing that they're going to do and to make sure they don't take away any of the vegetation on the county side, because that will block it. I don't know, how tall is the storage shed? Anybody here know? 25, and they're going to go an additional 20 feet, which will be, I believe, kitchen area that will be looking right down into my backyard, and my neighbors on other sides, all upside. So I just feel like the 4 stories is a lot. Small, modest home I bought right before COVID. I work from home. I have not gone anywhere. I did not even go grocery shopping. So if they came to the neighborhood and tried to talk to any of us, they didn't come back, they didn't leave any messages, didn't take any input that I'm aware of, unless it was 1 week after I'm vaccinated and I went to see my mother for her birthday. So I'm all for progress. You're going from 9 to 17, and you're going above the highest building that is there, which was a storage shed, which, by the way, there's no noise. I've never heard anything coming out of that. So I'd like to know if the water, I want to make sure the water doesn't come onto the path, bike path, the drainage, and it goes out a different way. I think that'll be a big problem for the community. It's a heavily trafficked path, so when I say I'm used to not having privacy is one thing, but not having people above looking down. So if there could be some type of a solution, whether it's palm trees, large trees, whatever, that kind of break it. I'm doing what I can on my property to plant native plants so that I can try to get something, but that's going to take longer than 18 months. And as far as the 18 months, I want to know if that's a Monday through Friday work day. Are they planning 7 days a week? We appreciate, I think, if we could have our weekends of quiet time in the neighborhood.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So your house must back up, you're across the trail from these people.
Yeah.
Okay.
As are my neighbors, obviously, all up and down. So yeah, it'll be a shock.
Okay.
Come by and say hi anytime. I'm usually out weeding. But it is, it's, I know they have the vision, his vision is these beautiful buildings and sitting there. I think that's wonderful, but my vision right now, floating in my pool, is greenery, sky, sun, and a breeze. And 4 stories, I know they're saying it's only 3 stories, but when you have the elevator shafts coming up, and as I look at it, I'll probably have 2 directly. I'm gonna lose some of that. Okay, but those are my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Ms. Dickman. I really appreciate you bringing that up, and I know that even this is televised, so we're all very aware of, and this is very important for you to address these issues, because we wouldn't know without your input, so we really appreciate everyone that's come forward. Hi, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. First, want to say thank you for allowing us all to voice our comments. Yep. My name is Hunter McKibben. I am a resident at 1769 Pasadena Drive, so I'm about 4 blocks north of the proposed project. Also live directly on back of the trail, which is awesome. I am also a landscape architect with a transportation land use planning firm in Tampa. And so as we all know, when we've gone over, the staff has stated that this project, meets and is consistent with our community policy requirements. And actually the project is uniquely situated, and I think this was brought up as that kind of transitionary site to what is really a mixed-use corridor south of the project. And we all know Eddie's and the Base del Sol, that's easily within 500 feet. Eddie's within a quarter of a mile. So I see a thoughtful, beautiful design, compact development that's walkable. I think that well, it's not just me, but, you know, a 3.5 story, if you will, to a 2-story step down in our environment is actually not even acceptable. It's actually appreciated. When you think about the evolution of this corridor and that transition from mixed use to residential, this is an opportunity to have a project like Isles on Bayshore to kind of bridge that gap. And for future development, you know, we will see height in that specific zoning, which is accepted in the comprehensive plan. So, you know, similar projects they went over in the area. I see this, like I said, as a really beautiful, architecturally pleasing addition to Bayshore, and I think it will enhance the properties along that corridor. And just as I said, as our community continues to grow and develop, I also think and appreciate the city working with local developers that are invested in our community, such as the ones that are behind this project. I obviously support the Bayshore, or the Isles on Bayshore, and I do hope to see it approved and constructed and have this be that, you know, really nice end piece to the mixed-use corridor in the beginning of our residential transition. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKibben. Hello.
My name's Kim Bowling. I live on 1554 Bayshore. I live on the freeway called Alt 19. If this project goes in, I would like to see the speed limit lowered. I have the luxury of having a big circle drive, and it takes me sometimes 10 minutes to get out of it. Either I'm going north or south, depends on the traffic. Sometimes the traffic's going so fast, you don't get a break. What happens when you get 2 or 3 cars that want to enter this place at the same time? Do you stop the traffic on Alt 19? And they're going to have the same trouble I do getting in and out. Is there going to be some way for them to turn left or right or to get on to the freeway? That's all I have to say about that.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming forward. Is there anyone else? Please come forward.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't believe you were sworn in, were you? Okay. Could you please swear him in?
You may come up and be sworn in. You're good, Carolina.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Can I have your name, please?
Yes, Mark Fisher, and I live at 1557 Pasadena. So I think the neighbors expressed most of the concerns we have, so I only had a few points to talk about. One is that today Pasadena is a dead-end street, and we have signs at the end of it that say dead end, but we still have people that, you know, are flying down the road, realize they have to turn back around. So my concern is that once this project goes through, it'll no longer be a dead-end street. So it seems to me that's going to increase the number of people that come through that are going to have to make a U-turn to come back out, because they're not going to be able to go through the gate to go back out the other way. So I want to raise that. In terms of the construction, we're certainly concerned about the roads that are there, you know, preserving the road. So if the heavy trucks come through the other way, I think that's helpful. But I'm also concerned about where all the construction workers park. We don't want them to line our streets, you know, prevent mail from being delivered, trash from being picked up by parking on the street. So we'd want to make sure that's addressed. And I think the biggest thing from a privacy standpoint you've heard is the landscaping. If there's a way to buffer, to landscape, so that, you know, we still have a level of privacy, you know, from the townhomes that are there, that would be a great help. That's it.
Thank you very much for coming forward, Mr. Fisher. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak to this application? Please come forward at this time. Anyone else? Last chance. Oh, come on up. Yep, you can be the last one.
I was going to respond to some of the...
Yes, you certainly may, but I would like to...
...that I heard, because this is all good information, and I don't want to take advantage of this time to have everybody here and them as well to
May I
speak
close
to
the
some of
public
these
hearing,
points.
and then you can go ahead?
Oh, I'm
No, that's,
sorry.
you can stay right there. Public hearing is closed. There we go.
Well, I wanted to address the stormwater issue, and basically, stormwater for our site is going to the west. There is a inlet in Bayshore that's adjacent to our site that we will be tying into, so all the stormwater that comes to our site currently, we have to deal with that stormwater, and it will be a part of our design. So, wanted to address that. As far as, construction goes, it's never fun having construction next to you. I don't think that this site will remain in its existing condition, the way it is, for very long. I think there's going to be construction here. That is something we'll never be able to avoid, but we are going to work with the community to abate their concerns. And those concerns about access to Pasadena, I completely agree. We need to take all of our big trucks onto Bayshore. We need to make sure that that street stays in the condition that it is, and we're going to work with the city to make sure that that happens. Also, as far as on the trail side, I just want to point out that the units themselves that are along the trail, I don't know if you can see this, or do you happen to have the...
Go to the last rendering.
The last, yeah. So actually up against the trail there, the terraces are on the west side of the building. So they're not going to be out looking onto the trail. And the buildings they stage at that point, as you can see. So it's not a 4-story building right up on the trail. And as far as vehicular access, the concern about Pasadena being overused, we're perfectly comfortable and think that it's a great idea that we turn the Pasadena Drive access into an emergency and waste management vehicle access. We can keep that gate closed and just for emergency and waste management vehicles, and that way we can abate the traffic condition there on Pasadena. And we're excited to work with the city on the new urbanism look that we're going to come up with on that Bayshore unit. And I think based on that, we probably want to work with them a little bit more. So at this time, I'm going to request that you guys give us a continuance to the next month so that we can work with them on that.
Can I ask a question before
Sure.
we do that? The city had mentioned earlier, and you can confirm, that you're in some flood zones, correct?
We actually, based on the new maps, we're hardly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the only reason I bring that up is because then you mentioned that even your finished garage floors will not be in there.
That's correct.
Are you achieving this by bringing in fill and making your land a little bit taller?
We are.
What is that footage?
Actually, only the west portion of the site. So the site goes from about elevation 13 to 14 down to around 9.5, 10.
At Bayshore.
Yeah, down at Bayshore. So we're going to lift the Bayshore side up a little bit, probably about 1.5 feet to 2 feet. Actually going to reduce the trail side over here. So we're not bringing in an exorbitant amount of fill or anything.
And I only mention that just so homeowners on the trail side are not seeing the land go up even more, which means the building height goes up even more.
No, on the trail side, actually, we're cutting.
Right. Okay.
Just want to make sure I think I heard you right, so make sure everybody sitting behind you did, that Pasadena gate you're willing to make that into an emergency. I happen to live in a community that's similar.
Yep.
Everybody comes in, and we do have a back gate that is just for the Dunedin Fire Department.
Yeah, we're willing to do that.
And I understand what they're saying. Okay. Several of you came up with that question.
I'm sorry, public comment is closed.
Missed your chance, sorry. Is there any,
That's it. I just wanted to request that y'all give us a continuance.
no consideration for reducing a level down to 2.5 instead of 3.5? No chance of that, right?
Of reduce.
the building height?
The building height, we're going to work to reduce it some. I think the product itself, because of where we are, now, in new urbanism, part of that is you are more densely packed. And the future land use here allows the number of units that we're showing. We're not trying to increase the allowable. And in fact, use one less than what's allowable. In order to do that, you have to go vertical. I mean, that's why you're seeing a lot of applications coming in where you have a more vertically integrated product. It's got the garage level on the bottom, and then you have 2 floors of living. I think we're going to work to bring our height down some, and we're also going to work to, on the unit on the north side, to make some that is closest to the north side there, make some adjustments there to ease that transition a little bit. But ultimately, I think it will have the number of floors that you see and the rooftop terrace. I think that's actually a part of the new urbanism. It's about uniquely integrated open space as well, and that's a part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hayden.
A question of the attorney. Since he's asked for a continuance, do we have to kind of stop talking about this and address that, or can we continue on?
Well, you can continue, but I believe the council, applicant's council has a few words as well.
Okay, Mr. Massaro, you've got a question.
I have a question, Reed. So you're going to go back, and assuming we continue this thing, and you're going to look a little closer to the objections that staff has made. You're going to look at something to do with maybe the front yard setback along Bayshore. And you're going to look at maybe doing something that could lessen the height impact issue that seems to be bothering everybody. Is there anything that and I know you just said it, the rooftop concept, I know that's kind of a sexy thing to have. It's neat. I could see, if I lived in a unit like that, I'd kind of like that amenity. However, though, in this case, that structure you have up there, I'm not quite sure. I saw an elevator going up into there. I saw a stair. I saw, maybe you could look at some reduction in some of that structure that you'd have on that 4th level. I'm trying to help you find a way to lessen the impact that everyone is so concerned about.
Yeah, you also mentioned that north unit that overlooks that single-family housing that's closest to the property line, that they're willing to redesign that so that it cuts down on some of that vertical height on that area.
Use the transition.
Yes.
You've got
Thank
some
you.
really good professional suggestions here,
Mhm.
Mr. Graham and Mr. Massaro. Anything else, Mr. Hayden? Any other comments?
I want to hear what Katie has to say.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Cole, it's your turn. I won't forget you this time.
Just to repeat what Mr. Hayden said, I think at this point, we appreciate the feedback from both the broader neighborhood. The neighborhood outreach was to the immediate neighbors, not all the way out into the neighborhood. So we do appreciate that feedback. And also the specificity in which the staff report was drafted that gave some of this feedback that in the past projects didn't necessarily receive at this point. So we always appreciate your feedback from this board and look forward to working with staff, and would respectfully request a continuance to your next meeting that hopefully incorporates these specific items as Mr. Mazzaro spoke about, that we would to have you all approve this project and recommend approval.
The objective, though, is a major issue here, and you picked right up on it. So please,
After I read
be
that
kind
article in the paper today, maybe you're looking for another one.
There you
It's a
go.
nice article.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Not sure how would we, we're
Well,
going to get
we're
some
gonna
advice.
I can make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we continue this project until the next meeting. Is that how you do that?
Perfect, yeah.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend a continuance on this application. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries unanimously for continuance on this application 21-05-19. Oh, that's the wrong one, pardon me. Application DR 21-04. We'll move on to our open forum. Anyone on the board that has anything that they would like to say regarding the open forum?
Can I ask a question, Joe?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And we may have asked this question before. What is the structure under construction out there next to the liquor store? What is that going to be?
Yes, I want to know. I want to know.
Oh, I know what that is. It's a walk-in clinic.
Next to the liquor store.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Where
Lucan's Liquor.
Lucan's.
By Lucan's.
Oh, okay.
It's a walk-in clinic, isn't it?
You know, it was, I believe that is going to be a dual-use building, some type of medical clinic, walk-in type of clinic for the majority of it, and I believe a small portion, or the end cap, is going to be a pizza, a fast food pizza, if I remember correctly.
What a combo.
Pizza?
What a combo.
A medical clinic and a pizza?
That way you're waiting for your appointment.
Maybe medical marijuana and pizza?
You know, forgive me, it's been a long time since this project was approved, and it's been, you know, it stalled during the pandemic, but as I recall, yes, there's a medical use in about 70 or 80% of the building, and then there's a small end cap that I believe is a pizza chain.
How about
That's what it was. I don't know if that's still.
We worked on it, it seems like 2 or 3 years ago.
I knew about the
The
medical.
inn on Grant Street, or the hotel on Grant Street in the 400 block, is that still alive?
It is, yeah. So the permit has been reviewed and has been approved. I believe they are finalizing, and again, I think that, you know, it's not like a broken record, the pandemic, I think that certainly slowed it down. I believe they're in the final stages of their infrastructure review with our engineering folks. And, I would imagine you'll see that start at some point here in the near future. You know, I have to apologize that oftentimes the developers, you know, they don't just give us updates. So a lot of times it's when they may randomly reach out and say, oh, by the way, we're going to be picking that permit up next week. Yeah. But it doesn't happen as often as you'd think. So sometimes, you know, staff is somewhat in the dark, kind of waiting, like, wow, that permit's been sitting there for a while. So it happens. But I believe those two projects, I believe that's where they're at.
Anything else?
Is the city involved? Have any comment on the structure that collapsed on Alt 19? At the end of Skinner?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The wall kind of collapsed in?
Yeah, so they, I mean, obviously, we heard about that very quickly, and a building inspector was dispatched out that morning, and the contractor was aware of it. I think they basically were trying to do too tall of a vertical pour, and probably should have had a mid-pour in that.
Gotcha.
And
They didn't have enough bracing.
you know, at that point, it was probably just too much, and, you know, I don't know if there's, you know, wind coming down Skinner, that, you know, you've got an unreinforced wall sitting up there being held by mortar at that height.
Yep.
Yeah. But, you know, there was no damage to property. It was just, it basically fell in on its own structure, so nobody was hurt. My understanding, it was just, got to redo your work. And they had to get it obviously re-inspected.
Yeah.
So,
And the insurance company's got to take a look at it.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Any other items for open forum? All right, well, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, meeting be adjourned.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Thank you, everyone. Oh, I forgot to tell you, the next meeting, August 11th, here, 6 o'clock, City Hall. Be there or be square.
And this item will be on the agenda,
Yes.
guaranteed.
Yeah? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for bearing with our sniffles and coughs tonight. Sorry about that.
Thank you for watching this City of Dunedin government meeting. If you'd like to review any part of this meeting or watch any previous government meeting coverage, you can watch these meetings online anytime through the city's website, dunedingov.com. Stay connected with everything Dunedin. Follow the city on this channel and on the city's Facebook page, through Twitter, and on the city's YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching this Dunedin television production.